I used to see you everywhere when I used to go out of my house, which was
Periodically, I leave the house, but I've gone 6 months without going anywhere
that's really.
other than the grocery store.
See, I'm going through something like that. I don't know. I can't explain mine. Maybe you should. I don't know. That may be too personal.
Mine's depression. That
Well,
does it,
yeah, I think mine is too a lot of the time, and I hate it. It's no fun.
Yeah. Now it's more old age and
Yeah.
COVID changed things. Some for the better. This was the best place to be for COVID.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
And I was more sociable and interacting with people, which is odd. Because we had our COVID germ pool, as we called it. Me and Jorgen, Lindsay's friend, that came out and then they quit being friends, or I don't know exactly. And she left him here in the water tower.
Really?
Yeah.
Like he was trapped up there?
Well, I didn't want to send him back to Nebraska or Iowa. Which has the most corn?
I don't know.
Corn.
Pretty
I said with
close.
a C.
Now is all there is. Now is all there is. Now is all there is.
Hi, I'm Gary Tufel from Wonder Valley, California, and this is Jill Reinig Davis. Davis Reinig.
Just Reinig.
Jill Reinig.
Took
And
me 12 years to get rid
yeah,
of
I
the
knew
Davis.
that. I wasn't sure if it was still part of it legally. And so she's one of the Wonder Valley. She's probably one of the most famous people in Wonder
Oh,
Valley.
shut the fuck up.
We've known each other a long time, and she's got a lot of interesting things that she can be talking about. And I'm going to encourage her to do that. So we've both been in, I don't know how long, I've been here like 15 years, something like that. You've been here probably around that same.
Almost.
Yeah. But this is kind of a unique area, and most of the people who are watching this probably are from Wonder Valley, and they already know this, but it's rural, but it's changing, and it's sort of near Palm Springs, if you don't know, but it's not that near. It's not really near any big cities, very near. So it's interesting. A lot of people who move here, especially from other big cities, it's an adjustment. But I don't want to get too far into this without letting Jill talk. So I don't know. Let me ask you.
Don't get me started.
Oh, I want to get you started. I guess. Well, let's go back in time. And when you first got here, why were you here? And also, what were some of your biggest adjustments here? Because it is an adjustment, especially if you're a city guy or a city woman. It can be a little intimidating, I think.
Okay. All right, stop there.
Yeah.
The original reason I came was actually with my family. I visited Wonder Valley with a friend of mine from Long Beach because I love the desert. They had acquired a piece of property out here with a little cabin. We came out for the day, and I fell in love with it. And I heard about this thing called tax sale properties, and we didn't have a lot of money, but I had a small retirement fund from when I taught school in Long Beach, in North Long Beach in the 80s. That could be a whole nother show. And I cashed out. It wasn't that much money, but had sat there for 20, 25 years. And it was enough to buy the first tax sale property, which is my cabin next door. Came out to a whopping $6,600. And had money left over to start working on it. So that was a kind of a family project. I wasn't working full time. Our daughter was just starting high school then, and we'd come out on weekends, and it was a great family project then. To be honest, I did most of the work, and I had friends, my handyman people, handy person people from Long Beach. I convinced a couple of them to come out to help with some of the projects. It was hard back then. This was 2005 and 6, to find people to work on stuff out here, to find people that actually knew what they were doing to work on stuff, which you both know and everybody watching. Because you can find people that say they know what they're doing, but you soon find out they don't. So that was really interesting. That was fun. I learned how to do most home improvement stuff. I have a row of books over there. I have other books around, and there's this thing called Google and YouTube that you can watch and read and learn how to do anything yourself. And that's what started us coming out here. And then the world as I knew it came to an end in July of 2010. And let's see, my family basically was destroyed. I was wrecked. My daughter was wrecked. And all thanks to some bad decisions my husband made, which we're not going to get into. But I ended up full-time then out here in Wonder Valley. And the cabin next door, it was fully functional. It wasn't finished off then. It was July, so it was hot as hell. And I was basically at the beginning of a major mental health breakdown. And I have mental health issues and have all my life. I have a severe depressive disorder. And I've been on numerous medications and different therapies and all that stuff. But I was always functional because I had things to do. I had a family to take care of, my daughter, and I always kept together and stayed busy. I was one of those Wonder Woman type people. Martha Stewart, that was it. That just had everything going and looking wonderful all the time. Annoyingly so, apparently. So it was a hell of a change to be laying in a fetal position on the concrete floor in a little 460 square foot Wonder Valley cabin with really nobody I knew out here full time. And not good for your mental health, Wonder Valley. But I soon realized that there's a variety of people out here. And back then, a lot of people with mental health issues, mostly men, single men living out here, and retired military. Those women did not like me at all. They saw me as some kind of threat. I do not know why. And what this area was known for, more back in the 80s than in the mid 2000 whatevers, or early teens, yeah. People with meth addictions. I've never seen or been to a place where they cook meth. I'm not really sure what all that involves. But a lot of meth users, meth addicts, which I consider somebody, they're functional meth users, let's call them that. I know people out here who go to work every day and use meth because they're addicted to it, but they function. They don't steal from their neighbors or friends or anybody. They work every day. And if you saw them at the grocery store, you probably couldn't tell. But unfortunately, there's a lot of what you call meth heads. They're the ones who break into your house, steal whatever they can, drill into your gas tank to steal gasoline, and give a lot of places a bad reputation. And my favorite song from I See Hawks in L.A. or Hawks in L.A.
Christy.
is the Wonder Valley fight song.
Yeah.
The Motel 6, just past the Marine base. He said this is a nice little region, but stay away from Wonder Valley. Wonder Valley.
Yeah.
And I think they got the line because they heard me say it, because I heard a woman at the Virginian in 29 Palms. She was arguing with me about all the awful people who live in Wonder Valley. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because she said, well, they sell meth. in the alleys of Wonder Valley.
It rhymes.
In the alleys of Wonder Valley. You know, an alley is, the back sides of two different buildings, two streets. And first of all, there are no frickin' alleys in Wonder Valley. No houses, no buildings, there are no two businesses in Wonder Valley. Nothing's that close. It's like, I'm trying to visualize it, and it's like I can't talk to people in 29 Palms about Wonder Valley. But it's just a strange world out here. So many different people. So, okay, mentally ill people, the retired people, the meth heads. And there was back then, more people now, a gentrified layer. There are part-timers out here when the weather's nice. They're very nice cabins. Most of them look nice from the outside, but can't really always tell what's inside a cabin from the outside. They're very bland. But you go in and they're fabulous. And it's a writer, or it's an artist, or it's, who knows? There's actors, there's, nowadays, since the gentrification, as you brought up earlier, I mean, there's an opera singer from New York that's got a place that they come out, which is freaking crazy. And lately, the person doing most of the development near me, annoyingly, is some, 80s kid star, TV star. He's buying up everything and redoing houses, and that one over on Blower.
Oh.
And the rock house over there. When I first came out here and I was being insulted on a regular basis anytime I'd go to town, I looked up statistics on the backgrounds of people out here and what have I ended up, because I came from a very middle-class, upper middle-class environment. I grew up, my dad was a teacher, 5 kids, 4 of us all got top college degrees. The one who didn't ended up making the most money, of course. But we lived very normal lives. We sat down at a dinner table and had dinner together every night, and that's how my family that I had was in Long Beach. We went to grocery stores to buy groceries and to the mall and went on family vacations. Did normal, I hate to say, TV family things.
I was just thinking Father Knows Best in those shows, you know.
Yeah. That was before my time.
Yeah.
I don't want to say Brady Bunch. So many kids in that. But when I ended up out here and I saw the family dynamics, first of all, there aren't many families. And the ones that are here, well, they're broken families. It's very low income, no social services really out here. I ran into, the first people I met were the mentally ill ones because I couldn't afford, you can't avoid them. I had somebody stole my new puppy that I had gotten out. And that was not going to stand. And I'd made friends with my neighbors who turned out to be a meth dealer. Didn't know that at the time, but he had taken pity on me because I was the most naive idiot to land out here because people kept running out of gas right in front of my house. And being, 12 miles from town, I had a gas can because that's what responsible people do. So I was always kind and gave him the gallon of gas. And then he had to come over and tell me, ma'am, they're really not running out of gas here randomly. They know you're going to give them a gallon of gas, so you might want to stop doing that. I was like, oh my God, I never would have thought of such a thing, you idiot. But I'd always give somebody a bottle of cold water, and I still give people gas. But I started meeting that type of person. I met people that would lie to you for no reason. Lie to your face for no frickin' reason. I've never experienced that before. I met people that didn't live in houses. They just kind of couch surfed around. people that the unregistered vehicle, not unregistered car or whatever, but hodgepodge vehicle. You know what I'm talking about, Gary.
Yeah.
And they drive the back roads to get to the edge of town where they can buy Natty Light 18 packs at Adobe Liquor and junk food. And that's basically what they live off. And also food they can get at the Palms. I'm not used to that kind of poverty. I've never seen that. I don't know how people function like that. That was really eye-opening, the poverty out here. And but back to the mentally ill people, because I was dealing with Crazy Ned. A lot of people knew him. He lived way back that way. He was the one who stole my dog, and his family moved him out here. He had a nice family in an upscale neighborhood, apparently. They bought him a cabin out here, and they relocated him out here because he was an inconvenience, an embarrassment. And I've seen that 3 different times out here where family members been relocated, put in a little cabin with their basic necessities met, but they have severe mental illnesses. Usually it's schizophrenia, it appears to be, and they don't take their medications. So soon they're roaming the desert, getting in trouble. And on this particular day, his sister had gotten him a vehicle so he could drive around and get into trouble. And she saw my dog. She'd gotten out, and he and another fellow out here, notorious. The cat ranch was named after something he did there. They grabbed my dog and drove off. And anyways, I went to my neighbor who had helped me out and been very honest and said, help. And so he put out the call, and somebody took this dog, and soon word came back, okay, it was somebody in a green SUV. And somebody else said, okay, who drives, Crazy Ned's got a green SUV. And it's like, where does he live? And he told me, and he's like, no, don't go. And I'm in my truck, and I'm driving over to where Crazy Ned lives. Crazy Ned had dismantled the cabin his sister or his family had gotten him because of the voices in the walls. Oh, man. So there's just debris on this acreage, and the thing he lived in was junk, garage doors, a variety of things that just spiraled inward. You couldn't see him inside, but that's where he was. So I'm stomping up there yelling at Ned to give me my dog back, and he's not saying anything. And then my neighbor screeches up, just like, stop, don't go in there. Because you know what you're fine. It's like, I just want my dog back. And then I hear Ned's voice saying, it's not there, I don't have it. Check White Feather's house. And Mr. White Feather had taken up residence in a cabin right on the other side of the hill here. No, he did not own it. Yes, he was squatting in it. And so the next thing I know, I'm racing over that direction, and my kind neighbor is right behind me. And then my dog runs across from White Feather's house across the road, and that dog was scared to death. I don't know what the hell I did to him, but I did get my dog back. Through the kindness of my drug-dealing neighbor, who seen that I was just a duck out of water out here, helping me out due to the insanity I was surrounded by. And I was very grateful for that. But the reason White Feather was able to squat in that house over there was the previous resident and owner had committed suicide within a couple months of me moving here. That was first suicide, unaliving is what you call it now. Second, third, fourth, were right off Blower, within 3 miles of me. A few years later, there's one The gentleman who lived from Sweden, who lived in a storage container a block away. And it's very common. It was much more common 5 or 10 years ago. It was also, I think, murders happened out here, but the sheriff felt better about writing suicide. It was easier. There's no investigation that had to happen. When Tanya, the bartender, died, they wrote that off as suicide. Well, nobody believed it, and it didn't seem right. She was a friend of mine for several years, and she was always the one to talk me up, pep me up, tell me I had to stay here. And so I found it so unlikely that she'd be unaliving herself. And the way she supposedly did it, none of that made sense. So,
where did you? I mean, this was all different coming from Long Beach. This had to be another world. Where did you get the guts to approach or engage with these people? Did it just happen?
well, after laying on the concrete floor in that little cabin for a couple months, I did not leave. I mean, I would drive to Long Beach to check on my daughter and figure out what was going on. I knew there was never going to, I wasn't going back. And if I was going to stay on this planet, that was the other reason, honestly. I had to stay out here because I didn't want my daughter finding my body. Mm-hmm. That's what they say, don't traumatize your kid by unaliving yourself, but if you're going to do it, don't let them be the one. And it was the Palms was the first place I went in. And the Palms is the first bar I ever went in by myself. I was not a drinker or a bar person. Palms made me that way. And it was the strangest bunch of people there. And I loved every one of them, eventually. I wanted to, I could have done without. It was the friendliest, most caring place. Mary Sibley. I worship that woman. Some people don't. It's a tough job being kind to the motley group of folks out here at times. Yeah. But she juggled it pretty damn well, I think. And I think Laura and James took over and have the same heart. And now Kevin's there too. But the Palms, I dread the day it closes, if it ever closes. I hope it doesn't. But you know, everything changes. Yeah. But no, I started going into the Palms for food and beverage. Old bartender there named George.
Oh, I remember him.
He was one of the most educated people.
Yeah.
Not all that functional at times, and he lived in a pile of shit of a house that had pigeons living in the ceiling.
God, I forgot about it.
Ex-military, like I say, one of the most educated people I've ever met, but lived in utter
But he was real articulate, and he could.
Yes.
I remember thinking this at the time too, that he could have been a Jeopardy contestant, and he probably would have won.
Yeah.
He was just really educated and smart.
But yeah, it doesn't. I mean, there's mental health issues.
Yeah.
You could be. And the statistics. I started off in that branch. There are more people. The higher percentage of people with college degrees live in Wonder Valley than in 29 Palms. And it doesn't. I eventually started hanging out in 29 Palms, and it was very obvious to me. It was that way. But it's the mental health thing, and I think people with mental health issues get pushed to the edge of society, the fringe. And I quickly labeled Wonder Valley. It was kind of joking. It's like you're over the edge and into the abyss. I hated Wonder Valley for a long time, especially when I was depressed and confused. how am I going to live out here? How could I rebuild myself? And with what little I had, what little money I had, and the 115-degree typical summer temperature, and insanity around me, and drug dealers, and I did have my guardians. I had the guy back there who kept an eye on me, and then I got another person who just saw what a sucker I was and started being kind of my guardian angel with a sawed-off shotgun. Because I started having unwelcome gentlemen callers. Well, it was one specifically, an ex-rodeo clown, now deceased, thank God. But he would, every few months, pull up in front of my house and make numerous lewd comments and suggestions and not leave.
Jeez.
And I don't have a gun. I can't have a gun. That would be the worst thing for me to own is a gun. I have a golf club. It's right over there. It's worked in the past for some people. But this guy, so rude and obnoxious, and my friend with a sawed-off shotgun. I've had to contact him a few times for this one guy. He's
still around?
My friend?
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yeah. He's much older now. I wouldn't contact him, although he'd be there. There used to be a water delivery guy out here. Some of the worst crooks I've come across in my almost 15 more years, it's been more than that, out here have been the fine upstanding businessmen. So I drive around, I know all kinds of different people of all levels of the social register of Wonder Valley. And most don't scare me. Actually, the ones that off-road vehicles scare me. Those are the ones. I can't stand off-roaders. I remember for every one good one who follows the rules and doesn't run over everything, there are 100 assholes out there that just take off. And I just know for a fact there's tortoises living around here, and there's burrowing owls with their nests underground, and chuckawallas and tarantulas, and people think nothing lives in the desert, but it's full of life. And I see some asshole in his truck just take off across there, and it's like, what did you just crush? And they piss me off. And don't ever try and say anything to them. They're the most violent people I've come across. The white male on an off-road vehicle. It's the only time that's when I felt the most in danger out here. And I've only done it once, and it was to some kid's son. Just asking him, please don't do that. And the kid went home and said something. Dad raced over here, made donuts all over the front of my property, and screamed profanities at me. Jesus. Oh well. Pick a card, any card.
You're an artist yourself,
Oh,
Yeah, fun, thank you.
and we're in a place filled with art.
That's true.
oh, okay. Let's show some of the art I've acquired from local artists. I should do more artwork. I think I already do related to mental health, but this one, and then it opened. I made this when I was really depressed, like 2 years ago. And when it opened, it was kind of springs on it with just very negative things coming out of it. But then, by the time I finished, I was not in that state of depression. And so I couldn't come out with the same words I wanted to come out of it. So then I had to stop. So I tell you my cure for the depression. It's not a cure. All right, this I love is by Kiki Sharor, who I think I met her when she was bartending at the Palms. The most bizarre story from the most talented human. These are pictures of the moon, full moons from Wonder Valley, taken on my property. I met her. She's bartending at the Palms, but she's also teaching art. Then she was just teaching, I think, art history on the base. She loved teaching Marines art. And they were great students. She always said how enthusiastic they were to learn anything.
Yeah.
And then she had a job at Copper Mountain College teaching art. Did that for a while. Then she had a job I thought was amazing at Marymount University
Oh, yeah, I remember she told me that
in,
once.
what was it? It used to be part of another college.
It's in LA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, amazing woman that she is, she had a job at Stanford teaching art. She did that for 4 years. And like 2 years ago. And then she came back to Wonder Valley. And LA, Santa Monica, she lives there. And they have property out here for her husband, Chris. And she comes and stays here still and takes pictures of the moon. I have a couple other of the photographs. She's having a show next month.
Where? Out here?
And Rio Hondo College is actually has a show. She's had a show at the Glass Outhouse out here. And somewhere else I can't remember right now. She made a really cool Ouija board thing too. And amazing person. I love her. She has crazy energy and she belongs in Wonder Valley. Oh, I hope I didn't give too much away there, Kiki, if you see this. But that her photos are the moon in Wonder Valley, and she moves her camera around. She has the most amazing cameras. A lot of art I do on accident. I actually tried sitting out and painting a picture of the moon, full moon at night, with a light on my canvas. Oh, don't turn a bright light on outside at night here. You attract more insects. Oh my God, it's scary. This is a painting my parents had of, my dad was a school teacher. This was done by another school teacher who actually unalived himself before I was born. And I never knew that story, but I always loved the picture. And that's just a scrap of metal. If you can tell, you know my planet things, but if you look sideways, I cut out Saturn. And that's, well, half of the other side is Saturn, the negative. And I just loved it. And for some reason, it reminded me of Donnie Darko and the evil rabbit, Frank, which is a favorite movie of mine that I've watched way too many times. And yeah, it's about mental health issues. This one, I always want to call him the wrong name, but it's Eric Nash. I went to a show, I think it's called the Compound Gallery in Yucca. Cool little gallery. I saw his stuff. He does large format artwork. Great one about like a gas station, lone gas station in a remote area with just a light on it. Beautiful. But he had these skulls, these perfect skulls. And one said Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree, 29 Palms. And when I met him, I said, well, where the hell's Wonder Valley? He goes, he didn't have time to do that. And I commissioned him to do this one at Wonder Valley, but I said, I want it looking like a Wonder Valley. The rumored Wonder Valley. The busted up, broken, hard times Wonder Valley. And he said, I know exactly what you mean. Because she'd been to Wonder Valley before. So he did this one for me. Perfect. The cracked skull, the missing teeth. And I love it dearly. This was, poor thing, bighorned owl. It drowned in my water tank after the lid blew off.
Oh, wow.
It's really sad. There are also the bones of a kangaroo rat. Because I had to empty my water tank and clean the whole thing out. So of course, me being the science geek that I am, I had to identify all the bones. This one you got, the Wonder Valley Human Femur, 2012. Yeah, that's a doozy of a story. Yeah, I collage stuff. I used to collect toy parts for years and years. I did. That piece is 20, 25 years old of toys. I like that one.
Yeah, it's 3D too.
Weird, bizarre religious things. I have this thing about. I was raised Catholic, but I'm not. I just like the ephemera.
Talk a little more about the Wonder Valley human femur.
Down by the salt flat at the east end of Wonder Valley, I would go and dig up clay because I did experiments outside. You might look at it later. Or next door with cob, making cob, which is clay and sand and straw. Build walls. People have made houses out of it for millennia. I dig up clay anywhere I see it. It's either dried up and cracked in little stream beds, or it's the shiny stuff after it rains and the puddles dry up. And I took my dogs down there, dig it up. My one dog won't get back in the car. It's trying to dig up some rodent hole. I'm pulling her out of the hole, and I look off to the side, and I see this bright, shiny white thing sticking out of the ground. And it's like, it's a bone, obviously. I was a biology major. I was a science teacher. I was like, oh, that's a really interesting bone. Not many it can be. I dig the rest of it out, dust it off, and say, oh, shit, looks like a human femur. I bring it home. And at the time, it was within the first 5 years of me living here full time. And I had a security guy, a private guy, Jack McConaughey. Interesting character. Used to be the fire chief and everything out here. And he came and he looked at it and goes, oh, that's a cow bone. They used to have cattle out here. I'm like, Jack, I don't know about that. For a couple of months, he just had me convinced that's a cow bone. I was like, it's a human femur. He's like, nope, it's a cow bone. And it's like I held it up to my hip joint. And no, it's from somebody my height. And I talked to some woman who, I just passed out here walking my dogs. And she was really upset talking about a party she'd been to when she was young. She grew up out here. And how one of the party goers was walking home and never made it home and was never seen again. And they always wondered what happened to him. And I thought, oh God, how awful. Their family, friends, never knowing what happened to that person. But for some reason, I was convinced this was a female bone. Don't know why. And then I started thinking, God, their poor mother or father or husband, who knows, has been wondering where this person is for who knows how many years. At least 10, 15 years, could be 100, who knows. Could be an old miner's bone, what do I know? Or even one of the local Indian tribe bones. It's like, I know it's a human bone. Jack doesn't know what he's talking about. So I wrap it up and I take it to the sheriff's station. Think that's the right thing to do. I'm a fine, upstanding citizen. And get there, I didn't know there's bulletproof glass everywhere. I talked to the receptionist or whatever. Show her this big ass bone. And she's looking at me like, oh my goodness. Let me see if I can get the sheriff out here to talk to you. Not a single person would come outside to talk to me, even pop their head out to look at it. She goes, well, she hands me a Post-it pad and a pen and says, well, just write your info on it and stick it on the bone and give it to me. And it's like, okay. I do that, and it's like, she wouldn't open the door to take it. I had to pass it through the opening between the bulletproof glass. It was the most awkward thing to do because it barely fit and the Post-its wouldn't stay on it, and then it was kind of comically sad. That would be a good scene in a movie. Just the absurdity of it. So I get in my car and I'm driving home and I'm a little disheartened, perhaps. My phone rings, and of course I answer it while driving my car. And I'm informed that a sheriff is on his way to see me at my home right now. And I'm like, well, they're going to have to wait a little bit because I just left the sheriff's station and it's going to take me a little time to get there. And so I do get home. I'm living in the cabin next door. I made some iced tea. I got it in the refrigerator. And I see the sheriff pull up, and there's a little like courtyard wall outside. And an idiot that I am. Now, get ready. So I open my door, I go out, I'm about to stick my hand out to introduce myself to the officer, and he just immediately demands a photo ID from me. Not handing me his card, not introducing himself. No, it immediately turns into an interrogation. And I was just like, whoa, just stay right there on the other side of the little wall. Screw the iced tea I was going to give you. It's 104 degrees out. You're wearing a bulletproof vest, standing in the sun. I'm in the shade. And I did get my ID, gave it to him, told the story. And next thing I know, I'm being accused of killing somebody 10 years ago, burying their body, going and digging it up, and then turning in this bone. Just this one bone. And he's demanding I take him to where the rest of the bones are. And I'm trying not to laugh. I'm not doing a very good job of not laughing. Because it is one of the more absurd things. I'm being told by this man who's very red and hot and sweating, standing in the sun. And I'm like, okay, can I drive my own truck? He says, yes, I'll follow you. And I said, I'm going to throw in a couple buckets in my shovel because that's where I collect clay. And he was confused by that. And I kind of start to just explain. And it's like, fuck that. Get in my old Chevy Silverado. The one dog, I was down to one dog, sadly, by then. And it hasn't been 3 months, but we drive down there. And it had been windy. It had rained. I don't know what. Looks a little different, but it's, it's maybe 25 feet by 25 feet, maybe a little bigger area. He was so mad that I could not point to the exact spot I dug up this damn bone. It's like, it was right around here. There were lots of rodent holes all around. Because my dog was digging. Right around this general area. He was so pissed off. He just starts marching off and pacing off space and all this. And I'm like, do you need me anymore? Can I go? And he says, yeah, stay, don't leave town or something like that. This is insane. This is insane. So I take my shovel and I go dig up some more clay and throw it back. And I just drive off. And I did get a phone call like a week or so later. And they left a message. It was a supervisor or somebody who called. And I did call back, but nobody ever returned the call. But it was a human bone. I did find that out. Like, we didn't know that ahead of time. But I had to paint its picture. And while it was at my house, I had it laying out on my courtyard fence. It said adobe or straw bale wall. And that's the time Bill Hilliard showed up at my house for the first time. Uh-huh. And I met him, and he was looking at it, and he just thought I was crazy as fuck. This crazy woman with a human femur laying on her wall. And that's when we met and became good friends. Okay, now the tile work really starts in the cabin next door because that's when I started doing tile mosaics. And everything's an experiment with different kinds. And then when I moved here, yeah, these are just different kinds of mosaics. I like this one. They really started as microscopic images blown up, parts of leaves, and yeah, I just made them more colorful. That one, and then I like this one, which are kind of stylistic cactuses with buds. That one over there, I had marble that I wanted to do different squares with, and wonder. Let me close my fabulous bedroom door. The snake, I got that idea online somewhere as far as the phases of the moon and snakes. Snakes, you know snakes if you live in Wonder Valley. I've got some beauties that have lived here, some gopher snakes, red racers, king snakes, Mojave shovel nose, and the meanest bastards of all, the sidewinders, which I learned to relocate using my trusty golf club and a Home Depot bucket and a wet towel. Don't try and put a lid on it. Use a wet towel. It's too heavy for them to push off, and it's just so easy to throw on top. And that's better than any drug out there as far as energizing you. The adrenaline that is pumping through your body when you scoop up a sidewinder. No, that one's the other one. This is kind of sums up Wonder Valley, except the cactus aren't that green. Sun, wind, helicopters, salt flat, tortoise, cabins. I went around the side. There's a roadrunner.
Yeah.
And rocks. I was trying to put rocks from the yard or somewhere in there. Plus some store-bought rocks. I've gotten a lot better at cutting stuff on a tile saw. And the one back there, I'm telling myself that's a rabbit at night that the moon is shining on. I should have done it in browns to make it look more like a jackrabbit, but the hell with it. The wind, and that theme returns because it's windy out here a lot. The dust devils, because they are born right out here between my house and that hill over there. I'm convinced of that at least. The ravens, that's Mr. Green right over there, that tile he did.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? David Green.
David Green, yeah.
And the lightning, great lightning storms up here. And the water does flow when it's raining. The wall of ugly dog pictures, I do have a few more. They're not up here right now, but they'll go up. I gotta take that one down there with the little Yorkies. That was from my sister-in-law's ex-boyfriend, and he doesn't deserve a place of honor. And planets, because, you know, me and planets, they go together.
Oh, yeah.
We can walk next door and look at those if you want. Sure. You gotta turn that camera off. Yes. Picture me laying on the floor crying here for days on end. This shit didn't come until it became an Airbnb. I used to have a bed sideways, and it was like a Murphy bed. They could fold upwards. But in here's the magic. This was the mosaic I started. I started on this wall over here. So you gotta get that side. Now, I didn't really have a drawing of the whole thing. And then I just kind of worked my way across. And I was really upset because I didn't get one of the shadows. I didn't think about shadow until halfway through, and I couldn't get it worked. I really liked the way the moon came out. This is my husband's and my daughter's zodiac signs or whatever, so the constellations. And I like them because they're easy to identify, but I regret having my husband's up there because I can hold a grudge for life. And then when we had the Olympics a couple of years ago, the summer ones, wherever they were, China or Korea or something, and I was staying here because the air conditioner was colder, and I did this micro mosaic, which was a total pain in the ass, but somewhere in there, there's a little porcelain dog cut in half, not cruelly, but the front half is there and the butt sticks out over there somewhere.
That is great.
But,
And where did this come from?
I made that a long time ago. Parts disappear randomly, and I glue something else on there. Is that a fan? Turn that off. And then, wait, what's this one? The funniest thing, this is, God, I have to go back almost 30 years. I've made 2 of these. This one's all dusty now. But the first one I made, I gave it to my husband's cousin, was a professor back in North Carolina. And she loved it. She took it home and was having some kind of barbecue, a bunch of other professory types. And they were all arguing about this, whether it counted as outsider art or not. Okay, who cares? But since I started college officially as an art major, I couldn't count as outsider art. My dad actually showed up at Cal State Long Beach on campus, which was weird, and told me they were no longer going to pay for my tuition, which is all they paid for, if I didn't change my major to something more useful. And since I mean, back then I was actually good at everything except English. I couldn't write, or at least I didn't think I could write. So it was either math or science, and I said, science, I'll switch it to science. It was because my oldest brother was an art major at Chico still 9 years later, off and on. And my sister was 6 years in. She got her master's in art at UC Irvine and was getting her teaching credential. Yeah, still. And I was like, okay then. I guess I can't be an art major too. So yeah, I only actually taught science for 3.5 years in North Long Beach, back when the Crips and the Bloods were
Ooh.
going. And
They were there? I thought they were.
they were, Watts and Compton are right on the
Oh,
other
right.
side.
Right.
And there was a fight one afternoon in the hallway. I heard a commotion, open the door, and there's this 6'4" female PE coach getting beat up by 3 students. So I just automatically, and I'd only been teaching there like a month and a half. I took over partway through the year for a man hockey player, a semi-pro hockey player who's going back to Canada to play without really getting paid because he wanted the hell out. Anyways, I took over, and she's getting beat up. I immediately insert myself in the situation. Bad move, Jill, bad move. I was sitting on the floor getting punched. And custodian, I just remember him showing up and lifting this, it was a girl, lifting her by her waistband off of me as she kept swinging and yelling, fuck you, Miss Davis, fuck you. And it's like, kid, I've only had you in my class for a week. She had just gotten out of camp. And being the naive dipshit I was like, hey, bro, you went camping with your family. How nice. It's too bad you went in the school year. It wasn't until later that the kid said, Miss Davis, camp means juvenile detention camp. That was, yeah, wasn't fun camping.
Right.
She was in jail.
So there wasn't a lot of land making or anything like that?
Yeah, none of that stuff. And she went, straight back. But in the process of her going to the expulsion hearings or whatever, I would have adopted that kid to get her out of her living situation she was in. That blew me away. And her brother was a Crip. Those are the ones with the blue, because the Bloods had the red ones. The Crips had the blue. Anyways, the day, I don't know if I took the next day off. Maybe I did. When I did return to school, I was immediately escorted off the campus by security and taken to another school very close to my house, and a much more pale student body, just as many problems the kids had, but it's because there was a death threat out against me
Against
by
you?
gang members. I was like, where am I? And I spent the rest of the year working in the office where they could keep an eye on me. And then I was a science teacher there for a couple of years, but it was like,
What was the death threat all about?
because his sister got arrested for beating me up.
Oh. Like it's your fault.
Of course. And the other 2 students, their mother left the state with them. They weren't actually students there. The adventures of
No kidding.
teaching in Long Beach.
Did you want to talk about any of that Airbnb stuff?
Um,
It's okay.
it was great. It helped me because when my husband was not paying spousal support, and I can't work because I have brain damage due to what the doctors did to me at Loma Linda and their mental health facility there. It caused permanent memory damage. I can't remember shit. You might not have noticed that. I lose track of what I'm talking about. That happened in the beginning of 2013. It took several months of treatment and wiped it out. Did not solve my depression issues for more than a couple of months. But I forgot how to use a computer, how to type, how to spell, how to do math. And I still can't remember names or faces. And it's really embarrassing when people meet me. I mean, I can talk to people and all this stuff, but if I meet them an hour later or the next day in the grocery store, I'll have no recollection of who they are. It takes forever to remember people. And the first couple of years after this, I was constantly writing. I used to write notes. And I had so many notebooks going because I'd misplaced the first notebook and more and more and more. And I wrote on my hand and up my arm. I go to the hardware store and they just look at me like, you crazy ass bitch. Got to just write a note for yourself. It's like, no, because I'll misplace that note. And then eventually it was like, oh well, I'll forget things. I still occasionally write on my hand. I write things in my phone and I forget that I actually wrote them in my phone because I have an app that lets me write things down. The hardest thing about that, there's a movie called Memento.
Oh,
That's very similar in that the guy, his wife gets killed, but he has a traumatic brain injury. And he goes around with a Polaroid camera. And he writes lots of notes, but he has a camera that he writes on. And he gets tattoos of important things. I didn't go that far, but I almost did when I was flipping houses. I'd run down cabins and fix them. There were certain math things I wanted to write. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. For some reason, never could remember that. Or the circumference of something to do with area. Oh, slope. The formula for slope. I have to look that up every time. On a computer, I could not. It still bothers me. I cried so hard and so long. I could not spell the word R.
A-R-E-R.
Yeah. How do you look that up?
If you can't spell it.
If you can't spell it,
you can't.
it's like, sounds like the letter R. And what I ended up doing was opening a novel, opening a book and reading it. It's like, that is the word, fits in there. This must be the word I'm looking for. But it was so crushing. And I had no help. I live out here in the middle of nowhere. I had no therapists that would help me. I mean, I would tell people, this is what's happening to me, and we'll look into that. We'll try and get you some help. Well, this never. Every doctor, every therapist I've had in the last 10 years, I've brought this up. Everyone has said, we'll look into that. We'll get some kind of testing to see where you're at, what you can do. And not a single one has followed through. So I gave up on them. And I relearned a lot of stuff. Some things I gave up on, I'm never going to remember them. I've still managed to rebuild numerous houses correctly because I have to relearn everything every fucking time. The steps of how you do things. I tried to talk to a guy about the science of drywall and why it's done certain ways. And he looked at me like I was speaking a different language. I was an alien. It's like, there's a reason the tape and the mud and then the paint over it, the primer, whatever. And they're like, it doesn't fucking matter. You just do it this way. And it's like, that's why there's like vapor barriers or moisture barriers and walls. And yeah, you got to have openings for ventilation. And it's because I actually have to Google stuff again and stay up with the latest technology because the stuff you could buy at Home Depot 20 years ago is very different. It's much more high tech nowadays than it was then. Things have changed. And some of these old farts that learn stuff, even if they learned it correctly, when they were young, a lot of stuff's changed. There's so much high-tech stuff out there that works great. They're different sealants, and especially when you're working in a bathroom or working with tile. I mean, you can paint over existing tile with stuff and then tile on tile. I haven't done that yet, but I read a lot about that. It's like I'm not brave enough to try that. But because I have no memory, I have to relearn things constantly. And it takes me longer, and I have to recheck stuff all the time. But I know that I'm doing things right. And I'm not fucking stuff up. That's why I do most of my own work. I still hate working with the county. Edison used to not be as bad. Then they got a new supervisor a couple of years ago out here, and I lost it and swore up and down I'd never do it again.
And you're still renting this place.
I am, but I have issues. I liked it. It really helped at the beginning, and then the county started getting more and more involved, and I understand why. Because people were renting out anything, were putting tents up, especially like up in Yucca Mesa and stuff, and building little sheds and renting them out. And people were coming out and paying a lot of money for stuff that didn't really have a bathroom. And there's a woman across the way, she bought a trailer and put it on what she thought was her land, but wasn't her land. She didn't live anywhere near here, and she just had Home Depot buckets with toilet lids on them, or toilet seats, and garbage bags to put in them, and a garbage can outside, and just expected people to do everything right and put everything in a garbage can outside, and then the wind would blow, and everything would be down on Tom Merrick's property, a quarter mile away. And I contacted her once, and she was like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And it's like, "Stop renting this trailer with no facilities to people, or at least live nearby to come and clean up after it." But no, I got rid of my above ground pool. I was having too many creatures drowned in it, and I just couldn't take that. And I have a lot of anxiety interacting with strangers, and that is getting to me. Although I appreciate the money, as I'm on an early pension because of my lack of memory, but I don't qualify for anything else because I work for the government, so I don't get Social Security and yada, yada, yada. I'm not poor enough for one thing, but don't make enough for something else. I got kicked off Covered California once. Through COVID, it really helped because the county closed down Airbnbs, and that was wiping me out, but then the federal government stepped in and was making up for it. That really helped. But then that all went away, and yeah. But that's why I was buying and selling property, but then that all went away. Just it's hard to find any inexpensive property to work on because that all got real. That's where the gentrification stuff comes in. And people thought it was easy to buy something, fix it up on weekends or whatever. It's like, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. It doesn't necessarily have to be that expensive if you have time to go around to the Habitat for Humanities and to check Craigslist a lot. It can be very affordable. But if you don't have time to do that, or if you have really expensive taste and think you can put designer stuff in little cabins out here and then Airbnb it without being out here, well, then you have to hire somebody to do that. And the cleaning fees are astronomical if you're not doing it yourself, and you soon realize you can't make any money doing it that way. There's been companies that come out and buy a lot of properties, and I don't think that's going to pay off in the long run because they're paying mortgages on those properties because they paid too much for them. And people really drove up the prices of the tax sale stuff. I mean, because they're paying $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 for these dilapidated cabins, and they don't know what they're doing. You know, hold on to them for a couple of years and realize, you know, they're in over their head, and then they try and put them on the market for $100,000 more than they paid for it. and nobody buys them. Says it's kind of a weird situation we're in as far as housing goes up here. The price really did go up. I tried to sell this a couple of years ago, but I wasn't getting any takers. So I had to sell. I needed money. I had to sell another property that wasn't finished, but it had city water. I really liked it. I wanted to keep it. It was tiny, but it had city water. And I just put a higher price on it. It wasn't that high, but it sold in a week. And I was really disappointed because this would have been such a better buy for somebody who wanted to Airbnb it automatically right out the gate. So yeah, the people who bought the other house, they Home Depot finished it off, which means the ugliest cabinets and the cheapest tile and that stuff. And they're still trying to sell it again. I don't know. You just have to do your due diligence and know what you're doing. It's possible. The way I eventually rebuilt myself was buying tax sale properties and fixing them up. Because I know after living out here that I'm the hardest working person I know. I know that. And I do a good job, and I get permits for stuff. Permits. I am good at arguing with the county and with SoCal Edison. It's worth it, though. You can get power hooked back up to something, and it makes all the difference in the world. But, so I can argue. I can argue with professional people, and I can also argue with the meth addict who steals the air conditioner and the water pump from a property you're working on. And you follow the tire tracks from the property to where they're staying, and they're not there, and then you follow them to the house where a bunch of thieves live and take the materials too. And you go in that house and you have your golf club with it. And you're surprised to find it's the person, a woman, who spray painted her name on the rocks across from your house. And she was frightened because I could tell her exactly which bones in her leg I was going to break.
That would probably got her attention.
I did get the stolen items back. She also offered to remove the spray paint from the rocks. I told her, please don't bother, don't go near them again. Well, I knew she wouldn't. I did buy matching spray paint, a couple, to make the rocks look good again. And she and her friend had also broken into the neighbor's house. And instead of breaking a window, they busted through a stucco wall. I guess when you're on meth, you have superpowers.
I guess so.
But you end up with superpowers living out here when you realize you don't have any other choice. But I've met some wonderful people.
I'm sure.
You.
Oh, well, thank you, Jill. Right back at you.
And where did I meet you? At the Palms or Christy Carter? Did I meet you through Christy Carter?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's probably because they were living around here too.
She told me one of the stories that started me on like a 7-year search. Christy Carter, musician, artist, a fabulous, vivacious person. I've never met somebody
She's great.
that
She's so sweet.
just beautiful and
And
talented and confident.
owner of many pit bulls.
Yes, she's a rescuer of dogs.
Yes.
And maybe that's how I met, because I had Olive at the time, my puppy I got out here that grew into a giant shepherdy looking thing, and our dogs used to play together. Well, she was also housekeeping at an affluent, famous artist house. Who,
There was a swimming pool, right? Is that?
yes, that's when my dog learned to swim.
Yes, yes.
And sure, she wasn't supposed to be in the pool.
Wasn't
but,
it like a music producer or something like that? Or
no, it was an artist.
An
It was
artist.
Gallery
Oh,
in
yeah.
New York and
Oh,
LA
yeah,
and
yeah, that's
probably
right.
San Francisco. And I was so impressed by that because I do art too. And I also has fabulous furniture in his house. And I later met him at the Palms. Mary Sibley introduced me to him.
Yeah, I remember him too. I don't think he's around here anymore, though, is he?
He still owns the house.
Yeah.
Haven't seen him since right at the beginning of COVID. Okay, anyways, Christy tells me the story about, he had this artwork was stolen from his property. And the FBI were involved. It's on, it's on a list of famous stolen artworks. And it's like, what? Yeah, it was, they think some international art thieves came to Wonder Valley and stole it. And I've lived out here long enough, a couple of years, probably, or a year and a half, who knows, to think, no fucking way. Or international art thieves stumbling into Wonder Valley to steal this.
What are the odds of
And
that?
it was this large sign. It was three-dimensional. I didn't know all the details, but it said nothing on it. The word nothing. And it was, I don't know, it was 8 by 5 or 10 by 6 exactly. I have a picture of it somewhere. And yeah, it was like international art thieves. They put a reward out for it and were searching and everything. I was like, I later found out that the sign was hung outside his house. Later found out it was hung close to Godwin Road. It seemed odd to hang as valuable because he'd made one years before and sold it for a lot of money. And I thought, this is weird. But it had been hanging up for less than a month, and then it disappeared. But I'm like, no way did someone from somewhere, no, why the fuck would the FBI be looking for this? And if they are, they're looking in the wrong places. It's here. It's here in Wonder Valley. And so, since I knew a variety of types of people out here, I started asking questions. My guardians, both of whom dealt drugs and knew every tweaker out here, an ex-tweaker, and I asked the mentally unstable people I'd met out here. They'd seen or heard of such a thing, and occasionally I'd get a little odd response that made me continue the search. Also, I've been a fan of Basil Rathbone growing up. Big Sherlock Holmes fan. Yeah, it was kind of a natural attraction to him. I was like mysteries and challenges, and it was my quest. I was on a quest to find this goddamn sign that said nothing on it. And a couple years into it, somebody said, I think I might have heard about it being in an abandoned, house or garage out here. Well, did you see it? Who saw it? Why would you think that? And since I'd been in a lot of empty cabins out here, a lot of people go into them as a hobby. What's in here? Anything interesting? Any dead bodies? What? I did find a Patty Hearst most wanted, Actually, she was a person of interest. It wasn't a most wanted poster thing. And that was in a collapsed garage, though. But I started stopping at every random empty, abandoned property, looking. I never came close, but I kept asking. And then one day I was on Shelton Road, and somebody I know was going the other way, and we stopped, as you do when you pass somebody on the road and you're in your truck and you roll down the window. And I think this truck wasn't actually a roll down the window one I had at the time. And we're talking for a moment, and I bring up the subject, and this person's, instead of saying they or something like that, or third person reference, he said I, or my, garage. And it was just like, I had the biggest smile on my face and cheered. And then he took it all back and I said, come on, I'm gonna come on to the Palms with me, I'll buy you a drink. I think it only took 2 drinks to get the whole story out of this man about he and his friend, who had passed away by this time, had seen the sign, they loved it. I was like, weren't you insulted by the sign that said nothing in Wonder Valley? There is stuff here. Wonder Valley is full of life, if you look hard enough, and beauty, if you have kind of a twisted sense of beauty. And he was like, no, we loved it. We put lounge chairs, beach chairs in the back of the truck, and we had beers, and we were gonna go take our pictures sitting in front of the sign. We thought it was hysterical. But when we got there, the sign had fallen on the ground. And we tried propping it up, and we thought, no, we'll wait a couple days and come back. They'll have hung it back up. And I said, we did that. They didn't touch it. It was still laying on the ground. And we waited a couple more days. It was still on the ground, but it had blown closer to the road. This is a story. And I'm like, okay. And then what you do? Well, we didn't want to get run over. We didn't want somebody else taking it. And we didn't want to get hurt. Well, we picked it up and we brought it to my man cave. He had a cabin that wasn't his house that he shared with his wife. It was his man cave cabin where he and his friends would watch basketball. He's a big Lakers fan. They cleaned it up. They hung it on the wall of his cabin. It was huge, took up the whole wall. He said, yeah, I even set up fans to blow on it because the way it was 3-dimensional, it had all these hooks, thousands of hooks with these industrial-like sequins that hung off of it. So it shimmered in the breeze. So it didn't just say nothing on it. It had this shimmery nothing. It was really a beautiful piece of art. And I said, okay, let's go. I got to see it. I got to make sure this is it. Because, well, it's not hanging on the wall anymore. When we finished the cabin, we had to make some changes in there. We put it in the garage, and it's still in the garage. I haven't looked at it in a few years. Come on. And once there's lots of stuff leaning against it, it's back behind stuff, and it's like, come on, we're going. Bought him another drink, and then we went to look in his garage. And sure enough, there's sheets of drywall leaning against the garage, and I'm like, I'm digging back there, just enough to lean everything up a little and reach my hand around it, and I could feel the sequins moving behind it. It's like, hallelujah. I convinced him, I told him a sob story about the picture, how the FBI had been looking for the artist. He was a famous artist, and this was valuable. And once he heard all the story, he was like horrified. He felt so guilty. He was like, we just didn't want to get hurt. And he goes, didn't you hear there was a reward out for it at the time? He goes, well, we didn't hear that. He goes, well, it was in the paper. He goes, we don't read the paper. Wonder Valleyan, an employed Wonder Valleyan, but not in the loop with, and it was like, that totally makes sense. You're not reading the paper, you're not listening to news, which is very common for people out here not to be in touch with what's going on. And I totally believe that he did not have a clue as to any of that. And the more I went on, the man was almost in tears over this for causing so much stress to other people. And he's like, what do I do? What do I do? And it's like, well, I know the caretaker, somebody else took care of the property. And it's like, I can contact him, but why don't we get it out of this garage and put it over on my property in my storage container? It'll be safe there. And so it took us a day or so, got it out of his garage and brought it to my house. I loved it. I fell in love with the damn thing. And it was so bizarre. When we contacted the guy's caretaker, I took a picture of it and I sent it to him, and I go, I think I found the missing work of art in Wonder Valley. And he was blown away, totally blown away. Wanted more pictures to verify it really was his. And then he contacted the artist, I won't say the artist's name, but he has a very large art project right next to the Palms right now. Doesn't say nothing on, but it's kind of similar, the statement that's on that art project. And I get contacted to they get in contact with each other. The next thing, I'm being basically accused of stealing this myself, or else making a duplicate fake. It was just such a fucking slap in the face. I spent years trying to find this goddamn thing, and then I'm being accused of being a criminal myself, basically. And I'm like bending over backwards trying to explain, no, I've been searching for this. I've been my own little dumbass detective agency trying to find, and finally it's like, okay, don't touch it, don't do anything. He was gonna have his art gallery or whatever in LA build a box, a custom box for it. And they were gonna have a truck come and pick it up. And then the next day I'm being told, no, we don't want to leave it with you that long. We're going to come and get it. His assistant did come and get it. I mean, they did have a box and gloves or whatever. If they could have seen it 2 days ago with the two of us, he even hoeing it into the back of a pickup truck and just driving it across Wonder Valley to get into my storage container. I was blown away by that. But afterwards, we did discuss the reward thing. And it's like neither one, this guy nor me, we're not wealthy. And especially at that time. And I said, he was like, no, I feel so bad. Don't tell him. He didn't want his name known or anything. He wanted to add it all together. I said, no. There's a reward. I want it to go to the Friends of Wonder Valley to donate art supplies, materials to the community center. Because there's a lot of people out here that don't have money that could really benefit from that. Any type of art supply or books or anything like that. And he was like, agreed to that. Totally wholeheartedly agreed to that. And he got in touch with Teresa, Friends of Wonder Valley, and then nothing really happened. And then COVID hit, and I never heard another word from the asshole. He never did anything. And he's got this tens and tens and tens of $1,000 artwork returned to him. And no thank you note. Even it took a while. It took a couple years before I now fully regret returning it to this piece of shit. I wish I had just put up 2 big posts in my yard facing out and hung it up there. Because I weirdly wish he would have done something, because these guys, I want to believe their story of picking up off the ground to save it. Yeah, because he said we didn't even know the guy had a house on the same property, because his house is set way back from the road. Yeah, they could have asked around a little more, but I don't know, maybe they did. And this was 10 or 15 years before I even moved to Wonder Valley this happened. So I was not involved with the great international art theft or whatever.
And that's they're all in the wind. They're disappeared. Is that as far as you know, or?
The artist is still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
I think he's in New York City now.
Oh, okay.
You can look up that artwork he's made, at least 2 of these. How much the first one sold for, I don't know. I was going to have to pay to be a member or something to look up the prices. But this particular one hasn't shown up anywhere. And I'm wondering if it did really show up on the FBI list, was it insured? Which makes you think other things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great story, though. That would make a great movie.
It was, I did enjoy looking for it off and on all those years and asking odd people questions and just the looks in people's eyes. Like, I knew somebody knew it was that, but I'm just once I found out what it was, I'm just picturing these old guys drinking beer, taking bong hits with this huge nothing sign fluttering in the breeze of the fan behind them. And I wish I had a picture of that. Mm-hmm. Now that part would be great.
Yeah. Kind of sums it up.